Hello and welcome. So you may see this lovely backdrop. I am live today with April Mack, business coach from the Canberra Innovation Network in Canberra, which is such a great place to be having a discussion about entrepreneurship, I think.
Yeah, what a great place. Thanks for inviting me here, Serena. It's really nice to be here.
You're welcome. So I think many of you on here know April Mack, and I think some of you are even working with her. I'm doing some work with her at the moment, and I am learning a lot because she asked some very insightful questions. I was like, oh yeah, I really need to think about that. So I know she's going to have a lot of wisdom to share with us today about people on their entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you again. And what I wanted to do today is share with you guys the top 10 tips that I've got for anyone starting in business, or maybe you've already got a business up and running and it's just not quite getting the traction that you desire. So for me and my journey, I kind of learnt the hard way and did everything the wrong way around. So I'm kind of wanting to help other people avoid that. And so I want to share with you top 10 tips on how you can avoid all the pitfalls.
But you do, don't you? Like, I mean, it's just been a year and a bit out for me. And I remember last year, because I'd just done a podcast with the lovely Amanda Whitley who founded Her Canberra, and she talked about how you don't really make a profit for the first 2 years. And, you know, we talked about how the average weekly wage for women in business starting out was $590. And I was like, in a year's time, I'll be earning more than I did in my, previous public service DFAT career. Yeah. I thought I knew it all.
Yeah. Well, that's the same here. I thought, I know what to do. I've got all this business background knowledge. Off I go. And I I got it all wrong. So not everyone has to get it wrong. Those watching, hopefully you haven't gone down some of the paths I've gone down. But the first thing I wanted to share is really to try and, when you're starting out or if you've got a business, have a look at how complex it is or how simple it is. And my advice is keep it as simple as possible. So it's the KISS principle. Keep it simple, sweetheart, not stupid. And really, I should have known that, because my background in the corporate domain, I learned all about lean startup methodologies, which is really, about how to make, when you're starting something out, you've got a new idea, how to get it up and running really quickly without spending a lot of time or money. I didn't do that for my own business. I knew all that theory, but I went down the complex route. So I would recommend, if you're starting out early days, try and test the waters as quickly and as simply as you possibly can, using as little technology and as little, process as possible. Just see if it's viable. See if what you've got there's a market for, if people are interested in what you've got to share and what you've got to deliver, and test it out before going too big.
Yeah, that is great advice. And I just want to acknowledge we've got a few people online. One's just moved up, but I think it's Brooke and the lovely Joanne Holbrook all the way from Hawaii. So thank you for stopping by. But yes, I've just finished a lean startup course here at the Canberra Innovation Network. So I've been doing Idea to Impact, and there was a very strong focus in that on customers and engaging customers. In fact, next week we have Dr. Craig Davis from CBRA and the Canberra Innovation Network, who's talking about some aspects of that. So once again, like you, I know the theory. Does that mean I always do that? Does that mean I'm totally engaged with my customers? Some days.
Well, it's great that you've done that course, and if we can look at ways of bringing that into your business, it will make a big difference. And like I said, I knew it all but didn't implement it. So that's the first thing. The second tip is, don't fall for every latest fad that you see or hear of on the internet, because there are heaps of internet marketers out there preying on people who are in the early stages of business, preying on them to say, just do this one simple blueprint, take this one simple step, invest in this particular process, and you'll be a millionaire in 6 weeks. I did it, you can do it, blah, blah, blah. And actually, I followed that path myself on a couple a few different people, and I spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of wasted effort in models that didn't actually work for me.
That's really good because good advice because, you know, I guess, you know, these days with all the different algorithms, Google and Facebook know what your interests are. They know what you're searching for. So I get constantly pinged, like every time I go through my feed, you want to get 6-figure success, I've got the secret. You want to do this, I've got the secret. Do you find you're starting a business and it's not working for you? Well, I've got the secret.
Yeah.
And it gets a bit exhausting sometimes. I sort of find, I go, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah.
Is there something I'm missing?
And it's really like it catches that part of us that really wants to make a success out of what we're here to do, because almost all of us will be doing what's in our heart to do. And so we're just like, oh, well, maybe if I just did that one, maybe I did the wrong one last time. And then, you know, I found myself hopping from one process to another. And so anyone telling you that there's one way to success is probably bullshitting you, basically. So yes, you can try tried and tested models, but, you know, there's not one size that fits all. Now, I'll just mention as well, if you've got questions or comments to make as we go, please feel free to leave them here, and we might come back to at the end, or if you see one that needs to be answered on the go, please let me know.
Will do. I do want to acknowledge Susie Cherub, who's here. Hello, lovely Susie. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Okay, so that was next tip is stay true to your heart. So leading in from that, like everyone who starts a business doesn't just go into business because they want a business. They go into it because there's something on their heart that they want to share with the world, basically. And so if you can always tune back into why you went into business in the first place. I personally lost sight of that and started down these complex models of creating all this automation and funnels, and I was becoming an internet marketer is what was happening without realising it. But actually I'd sort of, you know, lost sight of the fact that what I really wanted to do was connect with people and help them change their lives for the better. So always come back to what you're doing this for and see if you can focus on that, because you'll need that to keep you going and keep the momentum, but also, you know, to help you not go off track and see the latest shiny object and go trying to follow that.
I love shiny things. I love a bit of bling.
I know you do. Stay on track, guys. So, you know, and all of these tips I'm sharing are because I actually made every single one of these mistakes. So don't worry about that. We all often make these mistakes and learn the hard way. The next tip is being authentic to who you truly are. Be your most authentic self. And that was a long time learning for me. Really, this year is when I feel like I really came into my own in doing that. And I came out spiritually online, of all things. I hadn't even planned it. But I was so nervous about doing that because I thought, oh, if I tell people that I'm a spiritual woman, then they're not going to want to buy from me because they're not going to be able to trust me. But that was because my own limiting beliefs around spirituality were, you know, running the show. And once I worked on those and once I came out, what I realised is I attract all the people who I really love working with who get that stuff. So I really recommend to people to be authentic, whether you're spiritual or not, or whatever it is that's true to you. Don't give up on that.
Yeah, look, I hear you. I think some of the people would know this now, but, you know, I was doing a lot of freelance work with News Corp, including having my own column in the Daily Telegraph and the Herald Sun. And it was huge ego attached to that, you know, I loved it. But what they were trying to do was to shape someone who was like an extreme cheapskate, you know, sensationalised topics all the time.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, the trolls had a field day because, you know, people felt so sorry for my poor husband and kids, felt like I was, you know, this... I mean, and you know, you've met me, you know, you know, hopefully most people who know me know that there's a generosity from me, and, you know, my philosophy isn't just about being, you know, saving money, and it's definitely not about being stingy. It's really just about rethinking our alignment and being very profoundly grateful for our abundance and what we have. But, you know, what I realised through that wasn't me being authentic to me. Like, you know, I had an editor who was like, we need you to write about this because this is the SEO, and the SEO says that people want these topics. And so it was almost like I was contorting myself to fit into a version of me that they wanted, and in the end I just had to say, that's not me.
Yeah. I hear you. So you're having that alignment, and you've now brought that alignment in.
Alignment back.
And then what happens is the people that you really want to work with will, come to you, and those that you don't want to work with will start leaving. So it's perfect. Fantastic. So the next one is being prepared to fail. So I like the analogy of, when a baby's learning to walk, they fall down something like, 70,000 times before they actually can walk. And if you imagine if, like, after the first, 10 times they fall down, they, like, just gave up and went, oh, fuck it, I'm sorry for swearing, fuck it, I'm not going to walk because it's just too hard. I've fallen so many times now. But no, they just keep getting up and going. And it's the same in business. And when I say fail, it's not actually failing. It's just you're testing in the early stages. You're testing ideas. And that's where Lean Startup is a great model. So anyone who doesn't know what Lean Startup is, just have a look. It's really the idea that you fail fast and then you pivot. And so each time you try something, if it didn't work, ask yourself, what did I learn from it? What did I learn about my customers? How will I tweak it to get it right next time? And, I'm still going through that, and I think you go through that for a long time. And not seeing it as failure, just seeing it as, experimenting and trying things out until you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, well, that's good advice. As a writer, talk about it. Oh, Susie's got a comment. I'm not going to read out your comment, lovely, but we're laughing.
Sorry, I'm such a swear bear. I can't. It just comes out.
It's not a problem. If you're doing a podcast, it is, because it then means I've got to mark it as explicit. No, I've got to mark it as explicit content, and I haven't worked out the technicalities for how to do that, but it's not a problem. But, as a writer, they talk about, killing your darlings, particularly for fiction writers, and I'm more of a non-fiction writer, but, you spend so much time crafting things, and then someone will come along and they'll say, nah, that whole bit has to go. If you don't get anything down on paper, like it's all in your head and you haven't got anything on paper, there's nothing for an editor to work on. So the fact you're getting, edits back and criticisms and reworking, although it can feel really hard. It can feel really raw. Yeah, but you've got something to work from. It's not like you've got a blank piece of paper. So you've got to, remind yourself of that.
Absolutely. I love that because, I create courses and deliver them, and sometimes I'll launch something and it just doesn't sell. And I think it's fantastic, but the people don't want to buy it. So I have to ask myself, okay, why is that? And I don't have to get too attached to that. I just let it go, move on, and try something else. And it's been a beautiful process to know that that's okay. The next tip I've got here is surround yourself with like-minded people and supporters. So the entrepreneurial journey can be quite can be an isolating journey if you don't have people around you who get what it is you're trying to do. And, in my family, there's no other people doing what I'm doing. And, I had a really great corporate job and they just think I'm an idiot. They think I'm mad for giving all that up to do something so uncertain. And the entrepreneurial journey is uncertain. So it's really important to find your people. And so as both Serena and I are part of we're part of similar networks. We've got this beautiful group. This is a network, that you've got access to, where you can, share the things that work well, the things that are hard for you, and you don't feel so alone.
And I would add too that with Christmas coming up and family gatherings, which, it's been a COVID year, and, who knows what's happening with some states and territories such as South Australia, but for many people it's going to be the first time we've got together with family in a significant way all year. I've got my dad coming up pre-Christmas and there's things happening, and it's really hard when people are saying, oh, so what are you doing now? So you've left that job, and so what are you doing now? It's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
It is. And if you're still in the early stages, you can really get undone by those questions. Like they might say, well, how's it going for you? And how much money are you making? Are you, can you pay the bills? And you might be in the early stages where it's still, you're working it out. So it's really, for me, it's been a lifesaver to have like-minded networks of people who are on that journey who get it and they understand why you're doing it.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
helpful.
Because when you're really successful, then they'll get it.
Yeah, that's right. Then they'll say, oh, I knew you were going to be.
Yeah, you didn't tell me that 2 Christmases ago.
Yeah. Okay, great. So And that's it, you know, you need that as well. If you're going to stay in it, this is not a, you know, a sprint, it's a marathon. And so it's really important to, you know, make sure that you've got everything you need to be able to run that marathon and stay in the game. The next tip is being prepared to break the rules and go rogue. This is one of my favorites because if you're just saying the same thing that everyone else is saying, then you are not going to stand out. You are not going to be considered a thought leader or someone worth following potentially. So that's been a real challenge for me because I think I'm really good at seeing what others are doing and then implementing something similar. So I've really had to push myself to say, okay, well, you know, is that the way? You know, could I break the rule here? You know, can I break the norms? See what else is behind that, or do I have to just keep saying the same thing everyone else is? So I really encourage you to be pushing yourself to everything you're doing. If you're in a particular industry, just question, why am I doing it that way? Is it because everyone else is doing it that way, or is there some, you know, so it's a great way to stand out and become a thought leader in your field if you're willing to break the rules.
Yeah, I think this is great too because we're living in such an unprecedented time of disruption. I mean, people were talking about disruption even before COVID. You know, we've been talking about, you know, the industry 4.0 or whatever and, you know, the future of work and all these different things that are changing. But COVID has sped that up dramatically. Yeah. So you just can't assume that because you did something in 2019 or even 2020 that it's going to be relevant to 2021 or 2022. I think it's important to question everything. Yeah. And it'll... you know, it puts you outside your comfort zone to do that because you might have to stand up and say something for the first time and other people won't agree. And, you know, you've got to be prepared to... And it's okay to change your mind. Like, you can say something and then say, actually, you know, I've rethought it and, you know, that's not my stance anymore. That's okay. But don't hold back on what you truly believe in your heart because it might just be the thing that makes you stand out from the rest. The next tip is get comfy being uncomfy. I was just getting comfy then before I heard the last two.
So really, you know, if you're going to, particularly if you're going to use social media as a way to promote your products and services, you really need to be able to be seen. And being seen means being known and being heard. And that, for a lot of people, is pushing themselves outside their comfort zone. You need confidence to be able to stand up and tell everyone that you do this or you do that, you know. And so that, for a lot of people, pushes them outside of their comfort zone. So you might have something on your heart to do, but then, are you prepared to get out of your comfort zone? And has that been your experience, that being an entrepreneur has pushed you out of your comfort zone?
Oh, look, I was already out of the box, so, you know, it's nothing new. It was actually really lovely for me to have that opportunity to allow myself to shine. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of fear around that because, particularly as a woman and a woman working in the bureaucracy, I was really conditioned myself to be quiet. And it was this weird dichotomy my last year of work where I would be very vocal about saving money and investing, you know, and I'd have media things, and then I'd come back to work and I'd actually literally try and hide myself so that I wouldn't, you know, draw attention to myself. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But when my book was published, I had a fantastic publicist who arranged a lot of media, and I met her in person in Brisbane as I happened to be up there the week of the book launch, and she was delightful. And she thanked me for being so easy to work with. And I was like, well, you know, isn't this normal? And she said, no, what usually happens is that people who write are often extreme introverts, which makes sense, right? Because they like writing and, you know, it's something where they channel and they zone and they're deeply intellectual or whatever it is. But when you want them to be on stage and talk about their book or be on radio or be on TV, they hate it.
Yeah.
And yet, how is people going to buy their book if they don't hear from the author?
Yeah. Yeah.
They have to actually be able to do both, and a lot of people are not prepared for that.
Yeah. But you were up for it. Awesome.
Yeah, I was a bit rare. But she was happy.
Oh, I think that's great. But yeah, so that's definitely something to think about, and your own personal growth will go through the roof if you have your own business, because you will have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. The next tip I've got is get your business foundations right early on if you can, if possible. If not early on, then now, wherever you are at. Are your business foundations really strong and solid? And when I talk about that, it's really all the things like admin and processes and systems and your accounting and your bookkeeping. So again, I'm sharing because I did it the wrong way around, and all I did was collect all my receipts and put them in a big box, a shoe box, and I was waiting for to hit some certain number before I dealt with them. And then by the time that came around, it was just a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah.
And I've had to get a bookkeeper to help me unravel the mess that I've created. And it doesn't have to be as hard as all that if you get it right from the start. So start with the end in mind. And it's not actually rocket science to get your admin and your accounting systems sorted from the start.
Once you've got a system that works with you, it's quite easy.
Yeah.
A good bookkeeper is really worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
There were a few things that I was eligible for this year that I didn't think I was. I asked hubby and he was like, no, you won't be eligible, don't apply. But it turned out I actually was, and a good bookkeeper would have told me that. So it's actually not just your sanity sometimes, but it's the whole raft. It is hard though when you are starting out and you don't have an income and you don't want to have to pay for these sorts of things.
Yeah.
But, and we don't talk about this.
Yeah.
People don't talk about, well, what online business software are you using? How are you organising?
Yeah.
We just don't have these sorts of conversations. We have conversations about the ideas or other things.
Yeah.
And we need to talk more about how we actually organise our finances day to day.
I think so. I think it's such a valuable thing. It's actually I'm offering that in my course, Entrepreneur. It's one of the things I wanted to cover because when I asked the question of people, what have you found the hardest in your journey as an entrepreneur, and a lot of them said admin, accounting, all of that stuff, cash flow, and so it definitely needs to be covered off because I don't think that people know enough about it.
No,
I certainly didn't. Yeah, so definitely see what you can do in that space, and it's not rocket science as I say, but just starting early is a good idea. And my final tip is mindset is everything.
Oh, this is so important.
Yeah, I think people underestimate mindset, and there's so much talk about mindset these days that it's a bit of overkill potentially, but really because as I mentioned before, you've got to be in it for the long game because it's not an overnight thing. Most people don't make their big money overnight. It takes years of building, and so you need to have mindset strategies in place to be able to keep the perseverance when things don't go to plan, and to keep your courage and determination, pick up from those failures and pivot. That requires really strong mental capacity and the right attitude, I guess.
Yeah, I really struggled over the winter actually. Outwardly I looked fairly okay, but there was a few things that went wrong. I was talking before about a partnership that failed, and it failed fairly spectacularly, and there was some things said that were quite hurtful for me at the time. And so, middle of winter and all this is happening, and you've got a business model which is as yet unproven, not yet earning a lot of money. It's hard. It's hard. How do you, manage to have that resilience to keep going and to believe in what you're doing?
Yeah.
And actually there's a lot of positive things often around, but you often choose not to hear those things.
Yeah. So, absolutely. People underplay the importance of it. And again, that is what I will be covering in my beautiful program.
Excellent.
They're my tips.
Well, speaking of which, your program, when does it start?
I'm so excited about this one because it's my opportunity to help everyone avoid the mistakes that I made. So it starts on the 12th of December and it goes for 10 weeks. And so, it will be quite intense, in a lot of knowledge sharing, and a lot of growth will happen in that time. So really we finish in February, sometime in February. Don't know the exact date offhand. And yeah, that's it pretty much.
Excellent. So if you're thinking of starting a new business, you are starting a new business. Christmas is often a time when people are pivoting. It's the end of the year. It's a good way to keep your momentum going over that time too, and especially if you've got downtime over that period of time. I find it's often when I want to learn, because I've got downtime from other things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people avoid offering programs in this period, but my view is there'll be people on holidays who just want to learn some new stuff, so that's why I'm offering it now. And I'm very excited about it.
Excellent. Well, make sure to share the details in this chat. So Thank you so very much, April, for sharing our 10 tips. So I laughed at some of them. They resonated so much with me as well, and I'm sure they resonated with a lot of people here as well.
Excellent. Well, it's my pleasure. It's been my pleasure. Have we got anyone we need to respond to? You've been watching the comments.
No, we don't have any responses now, so all good. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye for now.